Committee to look at how we can improve soil quality and water quality in this watershed area. And I think it's very much needed. We've had major rain events this year come through the area. And of course, everything north comes down through Albert Lea, through Fountain Lake, out into Albert Lea Lake, down the Shell Rock River, and of course, eventually gets into the Mississippi. And what I saw coming through there was kind of horrifying because it was just really chocolate brown water with a lot of sediment in it. They presently have the money collected through taxation of the people in Freeborn County and through the state. They're going to spend $15 million dredging Fountain Lake, which Albert Lea is built around. And the point I've been trying to make with them is that if you don't change what's happening upstream, we're going to be back in the same situation 15, 20 years from now. And so you're going to see major movements on this whole soil health, water quality initiative. We're going to have more and more restrictions come to an application of manure, but more specifically commercial fertilizers and specifically nitrogen. And so we're going to be mandated in the state of Minnesota in the near future on how much nitrogen we can put out. And I think other states will follow because it's totally out of control what we're doing. It's ludicrous. We're throwing this stuff out here not knowing what we're doing, hoping for something to happen. And when we talked yesterday, majority of it's tied up or it leaches and it's gone. With this rain event we had here this spring, a lot of the nitrogen that was put out went down the tile line. And that's not good for anybody. And the main reason is our soil health is pathetic. And in collecting samples that you'll see out here, I went to different fields and I know neighbors who use anhydrous, and we haven't had any rain here for probably a month, and I'm kidding you, I couldn't hardly get the shovel in the ground. And I had to back off because they were going to break my handle. And so, you know, that type of soil is not going to absorb a whole lot of anything. So we need to have, you know, and the sad part of it is the willingness of growers to be educated and to learn. And it's a gradual process. So today we're going to kind of continue what we've been talking about, minerals and microbes, and get a little bit more into some specifics. I will pass this around. We had a very, how did you like Dr. Richard Mayfield last night, those that were here? Did you enjoy his discussion? It really hit home, didn't it? And the thing that was interesting, it really paralleled what we talked about all day with livestock and soils and crops, I thought. He's still got some cards up here if you didn't get a card. Fran and I are going to them, and we just got started here about 3 or 4 months ago. But we also have a product that we've had for quite a few years in the company. One is a BioMineral 75, which is a liquid. It has 75 minerals and coral calcium in it, and then a vitamin min enzyme combination with probiotic coral calcium. And I take that every day, and along with a probiotic in addition, and I feel like it really has helped. I think the two things that he mentioned last night that could help all of us is get a probiotic, take it every day, and then the fish oil. I think were the two things, and olive oil, coconut oil, those are some things that we can put into our diets. And the whole thing is to maintain and achieve balance. That's right. So we're going to spend some time here with Dennis and Dave this morning up until around probably 9:30, an hour from now, or 10 o'clock. We got a little leeway because we're going to spend probably an hour in the bus going out, so we'll maybe run this until 10:30, and then we're going to kick into things that we were going to talk about in the field, which is soil health, water quality, cover crops, and we've got several people coming in to help us do that. And we'll have additional handouts for you. I think the thing that's amazing to me when we look at this whole area of health is how God put this creation together. And we've got a deal up here called nature is governed by laws, and they're really God's laws. You either work with these laws or you work against them, and you'll never win working against nature. And that is so true And that's what I've learned in my career, and I think Ken would say the same thing, and a lot of us, is that if you do not appreciate this system that was put together, and if you think you're in control, guess again, because you're not. And we could say the same thing is happening in our society today. And we're in major trouble, and if we don't get a handle on this, it's going to continue to erode. And so these processes, or whatever you want to call it, that we were given to live by are very, very important. And all we can do is do as individuals what our part is. And hopefully there's enough individuals that do that it comes out. So what I want to do is we're going to talk a little bit about, everybody got a folder, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just want to point out some things to you. Obviously, as a company, we have put together both the services and the product technologies to achieve what we've been talking about. Now, all depending on where you start as a grower, whether we're talking about livestock health, manure health, or crop health, soil health, everyone starts at a different point. Everyone's got different issues. It requires maybe a little different approach. The generalities are there. I mean, the baseline is minerals and microbes, or microbes and minerals. That is the foundation to all these areas, including human health, as we learned last night. So that's really the strategy that we work on. So to do that, we put together the services and the technology to achieve it. We have trained individuals like David and Dennis and others that can help walk you through that. But if you can find this in your handout, it's our product catalog for fall 2014 and 2015. And the front of it, it's all about balance. At some time you want to read that, because it pretty well lays out again what we've been talking about. In here is a table of content, and it'll give you the pages which everything is on, depending if you're looking for seed treatments or you're looking for different type of technologies. We also have one for the organic group, so if you're organic, I can get you the organic one. However, all the products we got in organic, for the most part, are in this one too. And most everything we do overlaps. Then what you've got is it gives you cost and of unit cost per acre. So all of it is laid out in here, and that's kind of what you need to know. Then we have another sheet that is kind of like what we did was we took some of the key technologies and kind of did a bio on each one. Now around the room are additional flyers on products that maybe you want to pick up that's not in your folder, or things that you might need. Just talk to David, Dennis, or I on that. And what I did is I put a little heart there in any product, beneficial microbial enhancement technology. Anything that will enhance the biology and the nutrient balancing in the soils, we put that little mark by. And you notice most of the products have that. And that means that those products are either inoculants or stimulants to biology. We have our early order cash discount program. For those that, we have a lot of customers that want to pay early and get a discount, a lot like we do in other areas like seed. So we've got a pretty good cash discount that you can get involved with that covers the key products that we have in our catalog. It doesn't cover the commercial fertilizers because there's just not a lot of margin in those products. For those that are attending the conference, we're offering if you order at the, shortly at or after the summer conference, a 12% early order product discount, and are willing to give 10% down on the volume that you order and the rest December 15th, then you can tap into that. We'll extend that 12% discount, okay? Now, one of the key things that we want to be thinking about this fall is our primary, number one, if we got livestock, how are we managing our manure now to get it ready for the field this fall? We don't want putrefied manure going out. We want manure that's been pre-digested. So now you still have time to make some influence on that manure before you put it in the field and ease up on the pumping and get more uniform spreading. When it comes to the crop side, you got to be looking at what your fall nutrient program is going to be, other than if you're not using manure on all the acres. So that's when we're going to get into with Dennis a little bit on talking about the soft rock phosphate, potassium sulfate, elemental sulfur as your base program of products you want to get out in the fall. But if you want to do that, we need to be talking about that now, and I think Dave, you and Dennis are going to cover that a little bit more in detail, right? The other thing that I want you to be thinking about, Ken and I were down in the field in Iowa here on Wednesday morning, and we had about 40 to 50% of the residue still laying on top. And that just tells that our soils are not biologically balanced and functioning right. So we're working with that operation, and we're talking about getting material on there this fall that will help break that residue down and get it pulled down in the soil, the organic matter, the nutrients, and so we don't have situations like we had this year on corn. You notice a lot of these fields are a little bit behind, they're a little bit more yellow. Dave, I'm sure that's the same way up your way. So if we get that residue broke down, that really helps corn on corn. So if you're doing corn on corn, one of the key things you got to think about is getting this residue broken down. And the only thing that can do that are what? Microbes. And which part of the microbe complex? Huh?
Fungi.
Fungi. That's right. Fungi.
And actinomyces.
And actinomyces. I mean, they all have a role because they're part of the soil food web, but the lignants and those type of things, yeah, the bacteria do help, but if you really want to have it, then, and you got to remember, we're not talking one fungi, we're talking how many different species of fungi out there that probably get involved, Ken?
Well, you want hundreds, if not thousands.
Yeah.
Of different types?
Yeah.
Species, not total. Okay, not
right,
total
species.
Population, different species.
Now, one of the things that hopefully you picked up on yesterday is when we talk about microbes as a whole, we talk about fungi and bacteria and protozoa and actinomyces and nematodes. That's a class. Within those classes are hundreds of thousands maybe of different species of fungi. And one of the points that Ken made to achieve balance is depending on the environment that they are dealing with, they adjust who's active or dormant to take care of the situation. The same thing in the gut of an animal. Same thing in manure. So we need this broad complex. And one of the things that I think I like about cover crops in a monoculture corn soybean rotation is you bring diversity to the system, especially if you plant a mix of cover crops. Because every plant tends to work with certain nutrients or certain microbial complexes. And it's that diversity that really allows you to have more health in the system. So any questions that you might have on what I covered so far?
Well, when you spread the cover crop, though, you're reliant on the rain to get it growing.
I was going to ask how much rain, like say what was spread here a few weeks ago, probably didn't germinate until maybe today. How much rain 1/4 inch, would that be enough?
Well, yeah, I think you probably need minimum of a 1/4 inch and preferably probably a 1/2 inch. And, you know, cover crops, and I don't want to get into it because we're going to spend a lot of time on it, but cover crops are unique to the individual, the operation. How, you know, what's your purpose of using the cover crop? Like, I'm interested in taking 60 acres that I have next to my cattle operation and overseeding with an airplane a grazing mix, which has got to be done probably in the next 3 weeks, into the corn. And then if we get the rain, then we'll harvest the corn, and then that'll be available for grazing, and I get the cover crop, but it'll winter kill out because I don't want to deal with it next spring. Other people may want something for a different purpose. Some may want to magnify nitrogen. Some may want to break up compaction. Some may want it to overwinter and plant into it. So there's different purposes of why, but the whole bottom line of cover crops is to build balance biologically and from a nutritional point of view and build diversity. So that's the benefit of the cover crop. And the cover crops that I've been involved with, and I know, Jerry, you've used cover crops. And it's really growing. It was really interesting. The last issue of the Iowa Farmer Today had 4 articles on cover crops in that one issue. But the problem with cover crops, it takes planning. Just like crop residue management takes planning. And Jim, you know, the problem we have, we get busy in the fall taking out corn, soybeans, and the last thing on our mind is worrying about that residue that's in the field. And so we tend to just slide by it, and then it gets too late, can't do anything, and then next spring it's still there. And, you know, Ken was talking yesterday, Pioneer's #1 problem, especially with the GMO crops now, is we can't get rid of this residue. It's, you know, it's staying around because we've destroyed our microbial diversity and what we have in the soil that will digest it. They want to push populations higher because they want to sell more seed, but my gosh, when you end up with all the residue we have, so it's a strategy, it's a plan, it's things that you got to think about, you got to plan for it. It just doesn't happen. So that is an area that I think has a lot of opportunity. I really do when it comes to water quality. What I've seen with cover crops, I've really been amazed. So with that, we're going to ask David to come up, and he's going to talk a little bit about a financial program, financing plan or program we have available through the company, and to share with you how that works. David has 30 years in banking, and so when he came on board, we put this together. It's a program that we can promote in about 48 states right now. Okay.
Yep. David Widman, consultant, work out of my home at Vesta, Minnesota. But before I get into this, looking at my market reports this morning, cash cattle traded yesterday, $1.62 on the hoof and $2.57 to $2.62 in the meat. Just to let you know, the price went up. We took a big jump yesterday. Hogs kind of steady on there. December 15 corn, you're getting close, Jim. You're getting close. Don't look for the corn prices to do much. They are going down. The big thing, I think, is, according to what Larry Acker said, is coming up as far as the weather going down the rest of this year and into next. We could possibly look, if that December 15 contract gets down to $3.90. If you're a end user, I'd probably be looking at buying on the board, set up an account, you may have to do a margin call a little bit, and it won't be much. But if you're an end user, I would do some put options or actually get on the board and protect yourself, because if we have any kind of a little bit of a hiccup, prices will go back up on there. $3.90 corn, I think, would be fairly decent.
It's especially true with soybeans.
Yes.
Soybeans is going to take a dive.
Yeah. You watch your soybean price. If you're a seller, I'd be looking at where your bean price is too on that. I just took a quick look at those on there. Worldwide, I'll diverge just a little bit before I get into this. Worldwide, the things you need to look at is rice, wheat, corn, soybeans. just in that order. You look at the rice overall, how much rice is in the world? Rice feeds people. When that starts to get short, then prices will start to move up. Wheat's the next thing. If you got limited rice, but you got surplus wheat, we can still feed people. So those are the two key ones. Corn, soybeans, right now, we got plenty of rice, plenty of wheat, plenty of corn. Beans are okay. They're gone up. Beans are strictly driven by China, because that's where the demand will come for your beans worldwide on there. Those are just things that over the years I follow the markets, watch all that. So if you kind of want some insight of how to look at some things, that's what I usually look at on a daily basis. You know, watch your bases and a few other things like that. Know your cost of production. Wednesday we had a little training session here. I sat down, just did down and dirty real quick what we used to do in the cash flow for banking. Guys are around Marshall Redwood, we always use 175 bushel average yield. We put in $300 cash rent and everything else, and it came out to $4.37 as the break-even price. Can you make money at that right now on the board? No. You got to do something. Best way to do it is get your bushels up. You jump from 175 to 225, 50 bushels an acre, you dropped your cost of production or your break-even price, then goes to 340. It's just as simple as that. And I sat there, and I don't know how many, I had guys fed cattle get their silage checks in August. What was your yield? 250, 260, 280. Talked to them in November. What was your yield? 175. Where did that bushels go? It wasn't that long. August, they're saying you're going to get 250, and you actually get 175. What was going on? Well, we had Goss's wilt and a few other things. Over the years, I just finally determined, I called it the GMO factor, because it was all GMO corn that they were cutting. So, but now we know Goss's wilt takes up to 100 bushels an acre off and a few things like that. But financing program, we run it through AgriSpan. They can do all 48 states. They are owned by a couple of production credit associations. They work with agricultural dealers. It is geared towards crop production. You can have livestock income, but there has to be 35%, no more than 35% of the total farm income is how the dividing line on that is. Input and operating financing. Inputs directly related to the crop, operating your normal standard operating line of credit like you would get at a bank. Secured and unsecured. Secured, they want first on the crop and machinery and equipment. Unsecured, that goes up to $250,000. That's based on your individual credit scores. Minimum amount, we like to see the secured loans start at $100,000, $10,000 for the unsecured, maximum $250,000 for the unsecured. No limit for the secured loan. That's based on your operation on there. Unsecured, complete page 1 of the application, sign it, get it to me. I'll send it in. We'll be talking to you probably within 24 to 48 hours. Secured is a little more. We need an application, copies of your last 3 years of tax returns, and year-end financial statements are preferred. Mail that to me, then I get to send that in on that. All documents come to me. I maintain and control of all of that.
What's your current interest right now?
Interest rate will run from probably right around 5.75 to 9, depending on your credit score.
Okay.
They base it off of that on there. It's competitive on that. These are just some following things that have proven to AgriSpan to speed up the process. Complete, sign, all of that. Fill out the financial information. Get the copies there on that. Complete the crop plan information, crop insurance buyer. This is for this one here. That's for a secured. The unsecured is basically fill out the first page, sign it, tell me how much you need, and we'll go from there. And then the individual, and if you have a entity, an LLC, corporation, whatever, we will need to have a copy of that incorporating document or the document that created the entity. They need to have a copy of that on file. Also, we will need a copy of your driver's license due to the U.S. Patriot Act, so we can verify who you are. Competitive rates, $5.75 to $9. We can still do 14. Agrispan staff is in their meeting right now, and the program for 2015 application, all that stuff will come out probably around the first week of August on there. We understand how crop farming and stuff works. I've been in the financial business for 30 years. Questions, contact me on that. You have any questions? I'll be around. Need some questions answered, whatever. Just get a hold of me. Thank you.
Again, it's all the information is strictly confidential through Dave. We never see it here in the office.
And I worked with him for 10 years in the banking business. He's one of the greatest bankers, loan officers you'll ever work with, flat out. That's why I'm still working with him.
And it's nice having somebody that you're working with that understands why you need to do certain things. Like, why would I want to maybe need some money in my plan for cover crop, or why do I need to put on a biological? And you know, and so a lot of times what farmers do is dictated by the banker, because the banker doesn't understand why, if they make some changes, the more bushels per acre is going to help everybody out. But I think David is right. Our motto, really, when you look at our motto, it's really more from every acre, more from every animal, more from every gallon of manure. And that's really what we got to learn to do, is try to be more efficient in using what's available through the natural processes instead of buying everything. And if we get our soils biologically balanced and get the organic matter up and get the nutrient balance, we're going to have less pest pressures. And that's very, very important. I'm just going to take a little time before Dennis comes up and just talk about a couple key products that's in our toolbox. And of course, that's really what I called is a toolbox, and you've got all these tools to work with, and depending on the situation will determine which tool you'll pull out of the toolbox. So the one that we think is very, very important to get a good foundation in a program is use a biological seed coating. We as a company have been doing seed coatings for about 20 years. We were probably one of the first companies in the Midwest to do biological organic seed coatings on a regular basis. So we have 2.5 acres under roof in our facility. In the back we got 3 seed treaters, one for strictly organic, and we have to be certified through the processing part of it, as well as our coatings have to be certified. And then we have one that we do biological food grade products to, and then one that gets nothing but GMO. And obviously the reason for that is we want to avoid contamination. So, the fact is, to be honest with you, we use the same products whether we're treating conventional or organic. It's the same product. I mean, it's all biologically driven.
And your products are all basically organically certified.
Right, right. We can get them certified for you. And then we do a lot of customer treating. We do a lot of work for Albertley Seed House. We store close to probably 300 to 400 semi-loads of seed of different types here at our facility for Albertley Seed House. Downstairs we can hold 100 semi-loads. We got 3 bays down there. So one usually is organic, and so we can keep it isolated.
And you treat for Byron Seed too, right?
Well, Byron Seed actually, they're a group out of Rockville, Indiana, and we sold them a seed treater, so we supply them the coatings and then they do the treating. And they probably did close to 35,000 units this year using our liquid. But what really took off was our dry planter box we call the ProfitCoat PB. So as we'll see, what we got to work with in both organic and conventional is the ProfitCoat NB. That's been our primary flagship product. And the NB is nitrifying bacteria. So we load the nitrifying bacteria on the seed that actually fix nitrogen for the plant. And the advantage of a seed coating is you're using seed as a delivery mechanism. You're not treating the whole field or the profile. You're actually influencing that whole ecology right around that seed. So when that seed imbibes water and starts to grow and starts to produce sugars, it all happens right there. And then if we're having a healthy environment around that seed, we're going to have better root health. We're going to have more competitive exclusion to the pathogens. And so that's really the key.
Jim, what's the difference between, when we're talking about organic now, Profit Coat with NB versus BioSeed Coat?
Profit Coat NB has more loaded on the seed of the ingredients, especially, and it has the nitrifying bacteria.
Okay.
Now, within the BioSeed Coat, we also have some additional nitrifiers that are in that. So, not that it totally lacks it.
Okay.
You know, kind of look at it as a Cadillac Chevy market. You know, how much do you want to spend?
Okay.
And then the Profit Coat planter box, this is at planter box treatment that we put together. And that's the one that Byron Seed really took off on this year because they service a lot of the Amish community, the forages market, and they kept ordering, and I said, well, this is going to be the last order, and well, that was, and they kept ordering, and they kept ordering, and you know, we put it in packaging, in different packages for them. So I mean, there's a lot involved. You got to have the box, you got to have the label, you got to have the tech sheet inside, you got to have, you know, the product, you got to have the measuring scoop, you know. So you're putting all this together, and so that the grower then can buy whatever units he wants to treat. But I'll show you. I think I got some pictures in here. They just are really, well, they used it a year ago, and the results they saw was so fantastic that they kind of took off with it this year. I will say with the BioSeed Coat, we did have some bridging problems this year in some of our totes, the boxes. We didn't have any problem in bags. And so we kind of learned that we're going to have to put a little bit more absorbent on there. And so what I've come up with, actually through the work with Byron Seed, is organic cornstarch, which is really a nice talc product. And so we're going to be using more of that as an absorbent so that we can avoid this, if you know, that we didn't have any problem in the bag side, but in some of the totes we did.
That was with humidity, right?
Huh?
With humidity, right? With humidity?
Yeah, right. Now, I'm not going to go through all of this, but there's information along over the side here you can pick up. We didn't want to load you up in your folder. But, yes, question?
The seed coating, how long before you apply it, how long does it stay on the seed? 4 months, 2 months?
Our inoculants that we use can be 120 days. So we say up to 3 months.
How about carrying over seed? Say you had a couple, 2 or 3 bags.
There's no problem with carrying it over.
Okay.
No, not at all.
I've actually got a bag in my shed that I'm carrying over a second year.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not a bit afraid of it.
Obviously, when you got, you know, you've got living organisms now, you're going to lose a little viability, but they'll still be there.
How about germination then?
What's that?
How about germination of the
I
seed?
had trouble with germination this spring, and I used 10 bags that I had left from last year.
Okay.
Now,
Last spring was pretty tough.
the features are really the on-seed delivery, enhancement of the genetic potential. You've got bacteria, mycorrhizae, fungi are included in this mix, and that's very, very important because mycorrhizae fungi are one of the key microbes that live in a symbiotic relationship with the root. The root feeds them, and then they bring nutrients to the plant, moisture, but they also support disease protection for the plant. Ken talked about that yesterday. The other thing that we've got in this seed coating that nobody else has is we have a stimulant which stimulates them. And so we can trigger the growth of these microbes, the mycorrhizae, very rapidly. Ken, normally when you have native mycorrhizae or you put mycorrhizae on the seed without the stimulant, how long would it take for that mycorrhizae to really germinate?
1 to 2 months.
Okay, With a stimulant, how long does it take?
A day.
Okay. Is there a difference between that? And that's really key. And I'll show you some pictures here in a minute. The other thing that we got in it that's unique to only what we have, nobody else really does this, is we have 75 minerals that are micronized that are put into that. Now, why is that important? Well, plants need minerals, right? But who else needs minerals? The microbes, right?
And seeds need minerals to activate their enzymes to ever germinate.
So seeds need, as Ken said, need these minerals to activate their enzymes. And we talked about structural nutrients yesterday that build structure, but all these other, we call trace elements, are the keys. Picture yourself having a new combine sitting in your yard, and you haven't got a key. Jerry, can you start it? Well, maybe you can work around it one way or another, but it's going to be frustrating, isn't it? So these little trace elements like moly and all these things that aren't even in our vocabulary are the keys that turn these systems on. Not only for the plant, but for all these microbes.
So that seed coating then, Jim, so when you were showing that little video yesterday about the root coming down and the fibers, then you'll have some nutrients right there for
Right.
that seedling at an early stage.
Not only the seedling, but the microbes that are around that, work in that area. It's a stimulant. I mean, you know.
I call it my insurance program.
Yeah, right. The other thing that the combination of the stimulant also does, it's a nutrient solubilizer. So that means that it's solubilizing the nutrients around that seed, but also the nutrients that we're putting there. It's keeping them in a soluble form and preventing them from lock up. So this seed treatment that we put together is unique. Nobody else has this technology, and we think there's a lot of opportunity. It's just a matter of educating the grower why it's important. So advantages are enhance early seedling vigor, quicker emergence, provide a complete nutritional package, stabilization, etc., all the way down through here. So, and then there's obviously the benefits over here. And one of the things that I always tell growers when we sit down with them, because they're always concerned about cost, generally when you work with us, what you're spending now, you're not going to spend more money, and as time goes on, you're going to spend less and get more and better quality. So if I can take your corn as an example, because we're doing a better job with the nutrient mineralization, and I can move it, let's say 5 test weight points from, let's say, 56 to 61. At $4.50 corn, what is that worth to you per acre? It's worth $80 an acre. At $7.50 corn, it was $140 an acre. And test weight is driven strictly by mineral nutrition.
What's it make it a point? Because it used to be about $20.
Yeah, at you know, $7 corn at a point, you're looking at about $20.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's massive.
Yep. So this shows the bioseed coat, some pictures we took under the microscope. 5 days growing this in the greenhouse. Here's your control. You see, just like in the little video we showed you yesterday, see the hair roots growing here? Now what do you see in here? See this webbing? See these little spores? What is that? Mycorrhizae fungi. You can't do that without having that stimulant in there. Here's another picture after 7 days. You see all the mycorrhizae fungi growing in there. Here's just a comparison of control after 7 days versus the treatment. Now, what was interesting to me last fall in our plots is we did see definitely a response. In this case, it was 9.6 bushel. But we planted an 85-day variety on June 20th, and we still picked up 9 bushel. You know, because of the delayed planting last year.
And at that point, most of us would have scrapped trying to plant corn, but
yeah. So we wanted to get more plots in, so we put this in, even though it was late, in an 85-day hybrid we got from from Albert Lee Seed House, it's still cooked at 9.6 bushel. But what was really interesting to me was when you started looking at the soil profile here, look at the cloudiness and the compaction versus over here. You see how this is more crumbly? And it was so apparent that it just stood out. And so we're really influencing all of the stomach or the root ball ecology around that root.
Well, did David tell you he almost lost his foot when he went to get that corn stalk out of my field?
Yeah.
He was driving his potato fork down in, and there was no resistance.
Yeah.
And the other fields, yeah.
And the thing that we learn about biology is that you put something in the row here that's biological, it's going to move during the summer out. I've seen certain biological products move as much as 10 to 12 feet off a row. And you'll see it in the corn, because the corn will be like this here, and then as it moves out, the corn starts going like this here. And
a little secret for Darren here, you start treating your clients as manure. You know, normally if you have 1, 2 plug up, you'd have like 60 some inches between. That would show up the next year. But if I outlet to manure, it'll migrate to between that, and you will not see any streaking even if you have a tube that close. So I don't tell my farmers that. You know, they think I just do a picture perfect job. But that is an advantage for us as a hauler, because it always looks like we're doing a picture perfect job for them. But really, it's the microbes that are. Yeah.
as you see here, better stem strength, you know, what is that worth? This is something we consistently see, right, Dennis? You've seen that out in Millerdale and the work we've done out there. This is a study that BioSeedCoat did in 2013, and they sent this to us. They went out with one of their varieties, and this is here is a treated, and this is untreated. And they had a replicated study. They did the stand count, they did the bushels, 31,000 versus 24,000. So that was a 7,000, and this was in a 13 and a difficult year, okay? But look at the difference they found in yield, 217 versus 254. That's what really convinced them this year to really get a little bit more aggressive. And I got to go down here in the next couple of weeks and visit with them and look at some of their plots. But Samuel Fisher, who runs it, called me last week, and you know, he's just so pumped up. There's some things that we ran into that we got to resolve, and we'll get that done. But they are really. This is something I pulled out this year when the corn was younger. We've got a lot of what we call yield monitor studies out, where we got 10-acre blocks. And the nice thing, I work with a farming operation out here just right off of Highway 90 at Hayward, the Wangan operation, Matt and Marlowe. And we've got a setup where we've got a planter, we can put in furrow, we can put 3x3, and we can put in behind at all the same time. And they pull a tank with it, and we can put as much as 30 gallons at a time on when we're planting. And then we come back with the side dressers, and we can do foliar and side dressing at the same time. So what Matt does is he'll go out, if I want him to do a study with a GPS unit, he'll plant 10 acres of treated, and he'll plant several reps, and then he'll come back later and just fill those in with the control plot. So it gives us a large block to look at. But you can see here the difference in the BioSeedCoat versus the control in this particular situation. The next technology I want to talk a little bit about is Catwater Ag. This is a product technology we've been working on kind of with for the last probably, I suppose 5-6 years. We've probably not given it as much effort as we probably should have, because we are seeing good results. It's an interesting technology in that it really, what it does is chemically and biologically it helps balance out soils. And the best way to use it is in the fall, is to broadcast. The more water you get on it, the better it works. We're still trying to figure out a lot of the mechanism of activity. However, we have growers that use it with some pretty good results. We have a farming operation that was where I was introduced to it down in Algona, Iowa, farming 10,000 acres that have used it for 8 years. And what they use as a starter is the NPF that they make right on farm, a micro package, and then they put in the Catawater, and that's their starter program. We've used it out at Millerdale with pretty good results out there. I mean, we've really reconditioned those South Dakota soils amazingly. And Dennis maybe will show you some of that. This was from that farm down in Iowa where they had the Catawater in versus the control. This is Charlie Kolash. This is the farmer. He works real close with Dr. Michael McNeil, who's an independent crop consultant down there. And when they used it, what they found was in the control, you can see the difference in ear development, but they had a lot more mold versus where they had used the Catawater. Here's a picture of 2 bean fields. This is Kolash's, and this is a neighbor planted within 2 days of each other, Pioneer varieties. And you can see this is already prematurely dying, and this is still, again, healthy and actively growing. This is some work that Dr. Michael McNeil did back in 2007. One of the things that we do know, and we don't even begin to understand this, is that microbes play an unbelievable role in balancing. Now, I got some theories, but it's not traditional science. But there is evidence developing in relationship to what we call biotransmutation or biotransformation, is that within certain realms, nature can move from one element to another. And it's done through kind of the energy area. In that, there is more and more evidence and people working on that. Otherwise, how would we keep things in balance? And so we don't really understand all of this, but here we got a GPS soil sample where we went in and put it out the 1st of May, come back in July, and Dr. Michael McNeil pulled a soil sample. And what we saw was improvement on pH, on phosphorus, on potassium. We dropped our mag levels, which we want to do because that's way too high, and we're probably utilizing the calcium better. So this is an indication of maybe some things that are happening out there. What they observed was, again, healthier corn, better performance, stay greener longer, less mold than they found in the control area. Next year, what they found was less standing water because what we're doing is biologically balancing the soils out a little bit, and again, just a visual indication of something happening the year before, from use the year before. This is some work was done out west on alfalfa. One of the things that attracted me to this technology was because of the work we were doing in manure. One of the biggest problems we have in manure is salts. And we know that microbially we can break salts down. And what happens, a salt is really 2 ions. You got sodium and chloride as an example. And in solution, they float around as separate ions. And so what the microbes do is they grab these ions and they tie them up in making compounds. And so they no longer can be a salt.
And they still keep working once you apply them to your soil, so you'll clean up your alkali or salty areas in your field.
Yeah, because really alkali or salts are the reason why you have that white soil. And so their work continued to work to improve the health and balance of soil. So this is just showing here, they started in July. They put on the Catawater. Here's August, here's September, and here's October. So they were able to get that established in a high salt area. Now here's Doug up in his tank working with me and putting out some studies on putting Catawater right in with the manure in the fall, and now David has helped him develop a little device that the loadout guy can actually trigger in the cab depending on how much he wants in the tank, and they put that in, they fill the tank, agitate it, and then they apply it in the field. And here we're looking at some of the plots. There's their hog houses in the back that his brother runs, and we put the Catawater egg in here on the corn. You can see how nice and green it is. sad to say, when we took that picture, within 2 hours, a hailstorm came through and wiped all that out.
That was that July 1st.
Yeah, I'm in the basement of his house, in his mother's house, and the trees in the yard are laying parallel to the ground.
But despite that, Jim, what was ironic is all the neighbors had the same damage.
Yeah.
Come fall, my mom's yield blew away the neighbors. Theirs did like 12 bushel an acre on beans. Mom's did 32.
Yeah.
Her corn was well over 100 some. Some of the neighbors didn't even get 30
Yeah.
bushel corn. So there was a huge difference, even though it went flat.
Now, take a look at this picture here, guys. Let me go forward here a couple. Here's another picture. Matt Wangan, he's the guy that does all the work for me. What do you notice looking at that picture?
Color. A lot darker green to the left.
Okay. I went out and looked at that plot. These are 10-acre blocks. And I scratched my head and I went back to Matt and I said, Matt, so I brought him out there and I said, Matt, did you plant 2 different varieties here? He said, no. I said, well, tell me what's going on. On the left, we had Catawater in the 3x3. On the right, no Catawater.
Same variety.
Same variety. Yeah.
Because there's more foliage there on the left, too.
Yeah. You got, it looks like 2 different varieties of corn. You've got, this leaf is wide and dark and more bushy, and this is more upright, narrow leaf, and a little bit off color. Yeah. So I'm going to go out there and do some digging, and we'll take some tissue test and refractometer, measure brick levels, but
that's just about how much difference when I tried that iron combat,
Yeah.
experiment. And that's just about how that looks, where I dumped that iron combat into that corn.
Yeah.
You did that on corn, Ken?
Yeah.
And it made that much difference on corn? So does corn have a need for iron too?
well, sure, corn does, yeah, but we use iron combat mainly where we have high pH alkaline areas, But now, back in 2012, Matt, so I took Matt out, Catawater Ag, and I told him to put it on, plant this far. It happens to be in this field. We've got Interstate 90 runs right here. And this is a telephone poles here. So I told Matt, plant over the telephone poles, then I want you to put the Catawater in the starter. And then plant out until you fill again, about 40 acres. And so he did that, and then in the fall, he brought this map to me, and he says, well, this is what I got. I got 18 bushel an acre. Well, at that time, corn was $7 an acre. So here's what we're going to do on Catawater, because we really would like more people to try it. It sells for $15 an acre, organic or conventional. Anybody that wants to put it out with manure this fall, it's going to be $9. If paid by November 15th. If you want to use it on the crop, either in the fall as a broadcast, so how you can use it is in the fall as a broadcast, and it will help with residue decomposition too. Or you can put it in the starter or in the side dress. But the quicker you get it there, the more water you have on it, the better results you're going to have. So then, if you want to use it in the crop, let's see, David, help me remember. $12.50 an acre if they use it and they don't pay for it till next November 15th. Is that right? And it's $10 an acre if you want to use it and you pay for it by April 15th. I believe that's the way we set that up. So we want to give you a little bit of an incentive to at least try it.
So if you're going to use it like this fall, because I love using it with that unit you made for me. So if I use it with my clients in the manure, it needs to be paid by what, November 15th?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll work with you on it.
All right.
Okay.
And that's $9 then?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Now the next one we want to kind of talk about a little bit. Remember, we're talking about nutrient solubility, availability, and so in the soil you have only a small fraction of all the nutrients that in the soil are really available or soluble for plant uptake. And then you have the exchangeable pool that can be made available with enzymes or weak acid. And then you have the extractable that you need a strong acid. And then you have all these that you can't get except for the microbes. And so what we do know is by using dry fertilizer, we widen that a little bit. But if we come in with BioRelease or Soluplex, we can make a whole lot more available to the plant during that growing season. Now, BioRelease is what we use on conventional, Soluplex is what we use on organic. This technology we get from Salam and Ken, and what it does, it prevents the lockup of nutrients when you put it in with fertilizer, unlocks what's already locked up, and it stimulates biology. So when you look at the difference between Cattle Water Ag and BioRelease, Cattle Water and BioRelease do some similar things. Cattle Water works year-round. BioRelease works during the growing season, and it's meant to go in with your liquid starters or on with your foliars. For example, in sugar beets out in Utah and Idaho, sugar beets are very, very sensitive to salt. You don't want salt around them. So you go in with, let's say, 3 gallon of 1034O, 5 gallon, you're going to probably take out most of your stand. What Ken and Salam do is they use 15 gallons an acre and put in a gallon of BioRelease, and they have no problem. Okay? So BioRelease is meant to help you during the growing season to keep your nutrients available on lock, and it's according to Elaine Ingham at the Soil Food Web, is one of the best biostimulants that are out there. Okay? So, obviously, it plays into what we're trying to achieve. Microbes now can access all of the minerals in the soil over time. Yeah.
I put 9 gallons of 34 down with my soybeans this year on one of those rebumpers that just put, you know, for that BioRelease, and they had no problems.
But it sure looks nice, you were saying.
Soybeans look good. Dennis looked at them.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had, you used 9 gallons?
Yeah. I was too much on soybeans.
Oh, Jesus.
That's what I said last night.
But the BioRelease, yeah, I know. Yeah. Dave was like, you didn't do that. Yeah, I did. But it turned out fantastic. And what I want you to do is make sure you do a yield check with your combine this fall, even though you had all that, you know, wind damage. Because that's the only way you're going to be able to prove to yourself.
Soybeans never got hurt with the wind.
They did, okay.
Just the corn.
Okay, remember when it comes to plant nutrition, the key is it's not the number on the label or the jug, but what stays available for an extended period of time in the soil for the plant to take up. It's got to be soluble. Okay, so when we look at this and you look down here, what it does, all elements are either positive or negative, and so when you put them in as fertilizer in the soil, they're looking for the opposite and they're tying up and they're not available. So when we're looking at water solubility extraction, let's look over here at calcium. With water extraction, we get a number called number 28. When we put in a half a gallon of BioRelease, it's 104. A gallon is 169. Let's look at potassium. 9 just with water, 72 with a half a gallon, 151. So you see what it's doing, it's increasing the availability and the solubility of what you're putting out there. This is what calcium phosphate looks like, and this is what happens when you put 1034 in the soil. This has 3 negative charges, this has 2, and they want to marry up. When that happens, this is insoluble, the plant can't access it. That's under a microscope, a very high microscope. The other, just mentioning, if you are going to plant GMO crops, you definitely want to use something that will help offset the chelation of nutrients. So either the micronutrient mix or the Herbalite Plus combination is very, very good. And the Herbalite will help kill weeds quicker and better, and it's also got energy built around it to help cushion the blow when the glyphosate goes through the root system and out in the microflora in the rhizosphere around the root. So you got that. So this is something that we encourage growers that are still using glyphosate to use to kind of offset. Silage and forage enhancer, if you're using any kind of moist forage, whether it's haylage, earlage, silage, baleage, again, these microbes are designed to prevent mold from growing and help pre-digest that, so when the animal eats it, it goes to work quicker and better. There's been a lot of different studies done on that with really good results. Jim Nickerson has done some with his, if you want to talk to Jim about that. And of course, if you do have manure, we'd like to work with you with our bio augmentation technology or your composting dry product. We do have 2 teleconferences a month. One is the manure management one, which is the first Thursday from 8 to 9 Central Standard Time. We send out an email and a flyer for this if you're in our database, and you can get on from 8 to 9 and listen and ask questions. And then our agronomic one is the 3rd Thursday. This coming August 21st or wherever the date is, we're going to have Larry Acker on talking about weather and markets. So that'll be a good one, and then we'll probably touch a little bit on the fall products. Also, if you want to get together and have a meeting and not leave your office or your house, we can do a go-to-meeting. And that means we could get Ken on, and we could get Ken Hamilton on out there, and Dennis could be on, I could be on here, and we could all be at different locations, and we could see each other, and we can have a chat. I met a grower, Bob Kerr, at the winter conference over in Wisconsin, the MOSA conference, and we display there every year. Very good conference. If you want to go to, well, I think it was one of the premier biological organic conferences, that's a good one to go to. They get about, I think somewhere, Jerry? 3,500 people come through there, and they feed everybody breakfast and lunch. I mean, it's just a class setup. But what I like about that conference is the people speaking there are growers, talking to growers. And you meet a lot of really interesting people there. And so Bob, who's an analytical, came up to me, and I visited with him 4 or 5 times when we were over there. And through working with Ken and myself and other consultants in our company, through the GoToMeeting, he's in Ontario, Canada. We put together a complete program for him for Canada, and it's working beautiful. And Ken helped us get the product across the border, and so now we got a customer up in Ontario, and all through GoToMeeting. Works really good. But remember, it's all about balance. So now what we'd like to do is have, let's see, Dennis come up, and he's going to visit a little bit about the crop management programs. You want to use this, or you want to use this?
I do.
Okay, and then you know how to use this right here, advances.
Okay.
It's your PowerPoint.
Where's your red? Yeah.
Right in the middle.
Okay.
Right there. Right there.
Zappa.
Well, what I'm going to do is talk about our crop management program, and what we're going to do is, what we would do is take and learn more about your operation, what your abilities are, and create a program designed to fit your needs and yet make it simple enough that you can actually do it. So here's, some different steps that we take. And basically, we'll gather information. Start with a soil test, of course. And we go through Midwest Labs. It's a complete soil test. You want to have all your micronutrients on there. Of course, NPK. Base saturation is extremely important so we can tell what the heck's going on in that soil. Many times the co-ops will only test for part of the nutrients, the NPKs and pH, and that's about it. Maybe sulfur if they sell it. But you need a complete soil test to really, so that we really know what's going on. Many times our micronutrients on that soil test are quite low, but we need to know that. Base saturation, we can look at a soil test and determine what your issues are. You know, if you have extremely high magnesium, low calcium, you're going to have an issue with air, which means you have a really tight soil, it's a sticky soil, it's not going to breathe, you're going to have issues with infiltration, which is basically getting the water off the surface and preventing ponding, that type of thing, and percolation, which is water movement throughout the soil profile. But we can tell all that just from the base saturation alone. So what we would do is we're going to run soil analysis, and we'll put it into a color chart. And what that, wrong button. And what that does is it's basically it will separate out what's high, what's low, and the grower can see that by color. Red's going to be too high or too low, green's going to be ideal, yellow's going to be kind of in the middle. So it's just a nice way for you to understand that a little better. Then we'll go through that soil test with you and describe, you know, why things are the way they are, and a plan of action to correct it. So we'll consider, you know, the soil analysis, equipment availability, different farming practices. I like to go out to the field and we dig up plants, look at the roots, how many root hairs you have, how does that plant dig. I can tell by going out and walking on a field whether that's you have a lot of compaction, that type of thing. So there's a lot of different things that we go through to create a program that fits your needs. Here's a grower profile that we kind of put together. Get all the pertinent information, you know, business name, address, all that good stuff. How do you want to be contacted? Do you want to be contacted on cell phone? Do you prefer text messaging? Many of my growers prefer text messaging because they can't receive a phone, you know, a cell phone call. They don't have good enough coverage, but they can get a text message. And then they can respond when they want to respond. Some people prefer email. Some prefer GoToMeeting, like Jim was talking about with Bob Kerr. So we need to find that out, which way is the best way to communicate with you. Then we kind of get a history of, you know, your corn, your soybeans, wheat, whatever you're growing, how those yields are, how they've progressed, you know, what rotation you're using. You broadcast, you band, you use starter. You know, how is that? How is your starter set up on the planter? Is it a why not? Is it a 2x2? All these things really make quite a difference when you're trying to set up a profile. Okay, and then we'll put the plan together. Based on your soil test, we'll determine, you know, kind of a plan of action, but we like to start in the fall is the best time to put soft rock phosphate on. That's one of our primary fertilizers. And you have 3 fertilizers in front of you: soft rock phosphate, potassium sulfate, and elemental sulfur. The soft rock is in the black container in front of you. It's a blend of 55 different trace elements and primarily phosphorus and calcium. There's 24% calcium and about 16% phosphorus. And it's a slow breakdown product. Unlike your MAP, which is very soluble, breaks down immediately, and boom, it's there. The problem with that is it ties up with calcium almost immediately too. So you don't get a whole lot of use out of your MAP. With the soft rock breaking down slowly, your plant gets the chance to use that, plus it feeds the microbes, plus all those trace elements are going to feed the microbes. It's an ideal fertilizer. It really is. And it's the best way to build fertilizer up in your soil other than manure. It really is. And you build calcium up as you go along too. Many times these other fertilizers, they don't have any calcium in them whatsoever. And I see a lot of times, even in Minnesota, that we need calcium. And many parts of Minnesota, we can't put any lime on unless you go with beet lime. There just aren't any lime quarries around, except in eastern Minnesota, where they do have a few lime quarries in that area. Potassium sulfate is another fertilizer that we would prefer. We suggest not using OO60. We call it no 60 because it's potassium chloride. And the chloride is very hard on your biological system. With potassium sulfate, you have 50% potassium and 18% sulfur. It's a real nice combination. You need the sulfur anyway. For 200 bushel corn, you need 100 pounds of sulfur. You get some from your soil test, you'll get some from your organic matter, but you need to provide the rest of that. So by using potassium sulfate, you can get some sulfur needs met there, and then using ammonium sulfate, we can make up for the rest of it. I help many times with herbicide programs, and I think Dave does that too, but a lot of times he'll call me on those herbicide programs. One thing on a herbicide program, especially if you're going to go with conventional corn or soybeans, even if you're going to go with GMOs, put a pre-emergence herbicide down. I cannot emphasize that enough. You can go along and look at these cornfields that never had a pre-down, and they've got grass that's 3-4 inches tall, and yeah, they come in there with Roundup and burn it down, but that corn is always 5 to 6 inches shorter than the corn that had a pre-down. You can see it right along the road every time. I can spot those fields out a mile away.
And Dennis, the more you get your soils balanced nutritionally and biologically, the more resilience they have to putting some of these things out.
Yep, for sure. As you get things in balance, you won't have as many weeds, and you'll have better, your pre-emergence herbicides will work that much better, and you may not have to come back with a post.
What about elemental sulfur? Did you talk about that?
No. The elemental sulfur is another thing that you can put on in the fall. That's the only time to really put it on. That's mainly for reducing your sodium and magnesium in the soil. Magnesium and sodium are really hard on the soil in the fact that they cause a sticky and compacted type of soil. They're binding agents, if you will. And the particles of a magnesium, the magnesium particles are really small. So when you have a bunch of magnesium particles put together, they form basically like cement almost. And when that dries out, you'll know it because it turns to concrete. It's sticky when it's wet, and then when it dries out, it turns to concrete. So what the elemental sulfur does will actually help you filter that magnesium out, and it turns it into Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulfate. So it takes the sulfur from the elemental sulfur, combines with the magnesium, forms Epsom salts, and then you can flush it out down through your soil profile. The same thing with sodium. It works really well in sodium. Sodium is easy to move out. Magnesium is a little bit tougher to move out. Plus it's 98% sulfur. So you're getting a tremendous amount of sulfur, and all of these soils need sulfur. We used to get our sulfur for free. Everybody's heard that before, from coal burning power plants and things like that. And we've cleaned the environment up, and so we're not getting our sulfur for free anymore. So we need to put it out there.
I want to just add on to that, Dennis, since we've talked about this. The key thing is these are mined ores. Now, the most economic way to get these is in tote bags. You can bring them in bulk, but the trouble is the freight. Whereas tote bags you can put on a flatbed or into a van. The soft rock phosphate comes in 2,200 pound totes and the others in a ton tote. We can ship them directly to your location or we can bring them in here. We last year did put in a little bit of a blending facility back here so we can blend. We also have a 16-ton tender and a 24-ton semi-tender that we can use within a, not great distance, but around this locale. So we've kind of invested in this because we think this is really the best way to build your long-term nutrient base and also provide materials that are beneficial to our microbial communities. The key thing here is that if you want to do something this fall, you've got to do something within the next month, right, David?
Yes, potassium sulfate, done a first come, first served basis, right, Ken?
Yeah.
So if you need potassium sulfate, get your name in, get it taken care of now. The others, we would just assume that you order it now, the soft rock phosphate, sulfur, go ahead, order it. Most guys got a shed, they can put the totes in, get it out of the, just keep it out of the rain. That way you have it.
Can you turn your mic on? Now, tell us a little bit of how you and Doug do it up there.
What we're going to be doing this year is we're going to order, you have to order it by truckload. We're going to get it, we're getting ready to place the order now, and then that'll come in, we'll set it off. Him and I have a spreader trailer for our guys in our locale, and then we rent that out, so we'll get that on. But what we're going to do is have the guys hold their soft rock phos, their elemental sulfur. When they get done, they can get the trailer, get it on. We're not waiting for a shipment to come in. We've already got it ready to go. Last year we did, I had Doug and his brothers and a couple other guys, we put down 200 pounds of elemental sulfur, and I'll be talking about what we've done up there. 150 pounds of soft rock phos, and then we did that in the fall, and then we're starting to see some benefits from that already in year one. It's a 3 to 5 year breakdown on both the soft rock and the elemental sulfur. So
now the point...
First year I did that, Jim, I wanted to add to that. The trucker that delivered mine was from down in Iowa. And he says to me, he said, I've been doing this for years. He says, man, you're smart getting this product. What I didn't understand was, and Ken was talking about it, Dennis mentioned it, like the soft rock phos. It's got all your trace elements, all your other minerals in there. These co-ops, when you buy phosphorus, that's all you're getting. Everything else has been stripped out of there. So he told me, he says, that's the only product. He said, I got my own fertilizer trailer. So then David mentioned, he said, well, why don't we get our own trailer? So we went out and bought a brand new one. But now we got the capability that we can spread when we need. And most of us have all got GPS, so it's easy to go out and do a picture-perfect spread. But it's huge. And then now it's like, when we want to do it, it's there. But I think these co-ops even are finding out that fertilizer is going to be a little tight this year. And so if you're going to get your order in, you better get it done now, because 2 months from now, you may not get it for this fall.
Well, the benefit of these ores is, number one, as Dennis said, these are kind of, we're going to build over time. I mean, they're kind of a building strategy, but the 55 trace elements that's in there is replacing stuff that's not in your soil. And there are microbes in some of these materials too, so you're kind of helping with that whole aspect. You talked about the elemental sulfur going on in the fall. Can we put the potassium sulfate and the soft rock together in the fall, or how will you want to see that used?
Yeah, the potassium sulfate can be blended in right in. Elemental sulfur, the potassium sulfate, yeah, they can be all blended in.
Yes. If you can, put your SOP on in the spring.
I would suggest it, but many times guys want to do one shot and they want to spread it.
Yeah.
But you're right, because the potassium sulfate will break down in the fall, and you want it in the spring to break down so it's available for your plant.
Well, and you never know what's ahead of you, and so just to stop the potential risk of leaching.
Yeah, but can't, in reality, the thing is, in the spring, what guys out here want to do is plant. And
But after I see the
you really
difference-
got to have it planned, you know, and then it's like this year was wet, then you don't get it on.
I agree, but after seeing the difference, I'm willing to take the time in the spring to do the job right. So you're recommending then spreading that in the spring
Well, you just have less risk
of
losing trout.
Okay.
You know?
The potassium sulfate.
But,
right here.
but on that,
You realize, you know, you've got a 6-week window once you apply it to when it's really there. The sulfur isn't required early on by the plant, or required late, so you have plenty of time for that. Your only risk is, can I get it on? And it can be broadcast after.
Yeah, you mean after you've even planted, you can go out.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, I guess it's just to do the best you can do, and that's gotta be good enough. You know, it's not gonna be the end of the world if you put it on in the fall.
And it's kind of like Dennis said, whatever you have implementation for, you know, tailor it to your,
Yeah, if you're set up to do it that way, and that's the only thing you can do, that's what you do.
and cost of the soft rock phosphate and potassium sulfate are relative to what most guys have been doing with commercial fertilizers. So, but I guess the bottom line is this: if this is something you're interested in, talk to us, and don't wait too long, because what happens is everybody waits, and then they can't get enough semis in there, get them loaded on a timely basis. So now you're 8 weeks out.
And the other
So-
thing is, if you can get it placed early, that's an issue. Speaking of trucking, that's going to be an issue because trucking line companies and stuff are having a hard time finding people and stuff. So if we do it now, out of season, when there's less pressure, we're more apt to get things done on a timely basis.
so if we do it now though, can we get some blending done if we get it early enough? Or
These
Jim will
guys,
do the blending?
yeah, if Jim could, the problem is these guys now are so busy, they won't stop to do it. And what we've seen is by about mid-September, the SOP, and it's gonna be worse this coming year, has gone through spring.
Okay.
Because the big companies come in and they allocate like blocks of it. But what we see is the allocation schedules are full. You go to the back of the line and everyone is crowding in early, anticipating a shortage, and they're going to take it up. And get the allocations done, and the guys who wait, you won't get it.
Now,
Okay,
I want to make,
You could blend them for us.
Yeah.
Let's say we want a combination, yeah.
and if you got a semi, you could hook onto my 24-ton tender,
Okay,
okay? We could blend it and you could haul it up there and,
okay.
okay? One of the points that I want to make that Dennis touched on, these are builders, okay? Now, in the planning that he talked to you about is we've got to have a short-term, long-term strategy. So if Dennis or Dave or I are working with you, do you own the land? Do you rent it? What's your objective? Because that may determine how we put a plan together. So we got to have a short-term to get us by. Meanwhile, we're building. Follow me, Jerry? Now, the thing I think that we do uniquely different than most anybody out there is we just don't throw stuff out there. We stop and say, how does the plant grow and develop? What does it need? When does it need it? So here you see the nutrient uptake curve for red being potassium, the green being nitrogen, and
Blue phosphorus.
blue phosphorus. So look at right here. We have a peak demand between weeks 6 and 10 for over 80% of our potassium. How many growers understand that? So our planning process, Jerry, if you want to raise 250, 300 bushel corn, it's going to tell us, based on what you say you need, it's going to tell us how much we need based on a yield goal we can plug in each week during the summer.
Jim, if you asked your co-op, they couldn't tell you when you needed it.
No. So the green is what you've got and the red is what you got to make up if you want to raise that kind of yield. Now, Ken's right. Where do you think 90% of your sulfur is taken up? right out here during seed field. So you got to plan for that, see? And that is determined when you put it on, what you put on, the formulation. But your job, if you're raising corn, soybeans, is to think like a corn plant or a soybean plant. Understand how it grows, how it produces what you harvest, and what does it need in its diet. And then your job is to make sure it has it to work with. And that's what the planning does. It puts a plan together that gives you a very definite plan of action. Now, this is all work that Ken has done with other people, but it all came out of Missouri with Dr. Albrecht when he spent his whole life studying what is ideal nutrition for a plant and how does it all come together. And so I think that's a key part of it. Instead of just throwing stuff out there, you've got an objective that you're working towards. And it's based on how you farm, okay?
Now we're gonna get back on track here. Well, like in the fall, we've talked about crop residue breakdown, that type of thing. That's very critical on corn especially, but any corn residue, especially if you're using GMO stocks. We need to get that residue broken down so it doesn't putrefy and turn into alcohols and aldehydes, but it also affects, excuse me, your nitrogen utilization in the spring. Those microbes are going to eat first before your crop does. So if the microbes are trying to break that residue down, they're robbing nitrogen to help process that residue. It's going to affect your crop. So we want to be looking at crop residue recycling in the fall and try and figure out a way and plan to get that applied.
That residue you break down, that's liquid, right?
The product? Yeah.
See, that's where we are, when you come in so late in the fall, that's issue.
It's definitely an issue because you're cold then,
We
and
need something
You put
dry.
manure down.
We need something dry.
Do you put manure down?
Pardon me?
Do you put manure down?
No.
Okay.
Well, Jerry, when do you normally take your corn off?
Well, a lot depends on the year.
Okay.
And just depends, like last year, we're talking
November,
late
late October anyway.
November 15th, November 18th, something like that.
Yeah. The thing is, when we start talking about cover crops, and I think TJ will say this too, and Miles, is you have to think short and long term.
Right.
So when we talk about cover crops, we're talking about maybe shortening up the day maturity on the corn so we can do what we want to do in the total program, knowing that by doing that, in the long run, I'm going to be further ahead. So we've preached this, Dennis, for 20 years about crop residue, and we don't get anywhere, really, do we?
No. But your cover crop in itself, hang on, your cover crop in itself is going to stimulate biology, which is going to help you break down that residue.
But the thing...
My operation line, everything that's in rye now, that's all one of the cover crops. That's probably a third, 40% of the crop,
Right.
crop cycle. What I don't have in beans and corn, in what I'll get into beans, I'll be able to take that off, beans off, and I'll put in rye.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
Even if I go early enough with the corn, I'll put in rye.
Sure. Ken, what was your comment?
Well, you have to realize that your microbes, I realize it gets cold, but it takes time for your soil temperatures to drop and go down to where you have fewer and fewer biology that's active. You also have those soils becoming more active earlier in the spring, and you have a lot of time, probably way more time in the spring between warming up and planting that your biology is active. You shouldn't look at fall crop residue as a 2-week window. You got 6 months, guys. We got microbes out of Alaska. Those pot lickers work at 50 friggin' below to 100 degrees above. And so we bring in that diversity so that there's biology going
You may have a frozen crust up on top, but you still have activity below. And this isn't just about residue. You guys don't realize this incredible workforce that you're blowing off, trying to kill, and largely ignoring. And this is going to be the life and death of you guys, and you need to figure it out. Okay, you guys don't utilize this, you will quit farming one day. You mark my words. This has such a potential to straighten so many things out, because you didn't just get rid of most of your residue within a month or two. You stopped your pathogens. You restructured your soil. Every microbe you put down is going to help grow and bless and nurture a cover crop. And it's going to be there when you till it back in to put it back into a usable form 100 times faster than a dead soil. This biology will activate everything that's going on down there and accelerate every process. You come into next year, you'll have better soil aggregation, better water retention, better plant protection, better germination. The whole program is set up. You're either building a slum down there or you're building a high-rise city with the modern conveniences that we have. And guys, you're slumlords when it comes to your biology profile. There's nobody worse at it on this planet than conventional agriculture.
Well, rotation's going to help you too.
It will help you, but the problem is you got a plant, and your plant depends on biology and minerals. And the more you get the biology in your soils, you enhance every crop. I don't care how many times you rotate. We got guys that are doing nonstop growing. They don't ever quit. And that biology never goes to bed. It is there after every crop. You get the biology right, you get the minerals right. You can put in any crop you want. I don't care if it's coconut trees or if it's peas. Every one of those things in back-to-back rotation, continuous succession, will knock it out of the park. And you can't do it with the system that you're doing.
You know, like I was going to tell Jerry, when it comes to, I'm in the same boat. I don't have the time, but I can hire the manpower to get that job done. That's what I started doing. Is it doesn't work for me personally to do it, but I'll hire.
Well, you guys are going to have to think different. I'll be really blunt with you guys, because I really like blunt because I don't have a lot of time. I love farmers, but you've gotten damn lazy and you've taken the easy way so long, you guys don't know what work is. Your grandfathers and your fathers look at you guys like, you're taking too much time off. You've gotten too big, you can't do it right. And why do a great big sloppy job when a smaller, better job would be better? Everything we do is we put money and research into helping you guys. And some of the cheapest resources you guys don't use because it's not convenient. And I understand that to a point. But at some point, what you're doing is going to quit. Because there's going to become better alternatives and you won't have a product to sell. So, I am incredibly passionate about this because I know it and I understand it and I see it work. And when it is working, it is far better than what you guys have.
You're so passionate, you're willing to skip a fishing trip to come talk to us.
That too. You owe me, Doug.
So what you're saying...
Guys, just try this. If you'll just start it on one field, you guys can do one field. Don't worry about the whole farm. You get this on one field and you start doing this, you guys will stay up at night figuring out how to expand it.
So you're saying, Ken, even though it's getting late in the fall, get it on and it'll work during the winter, and next spring you've got it and you've still got 5 months. So, don't worry if you can get it on.
It'll work. I know it gets cold.
Yeah.
We're in the same boat you guys are, and crops come off late, but the biology has time to do a tremendous amount of good. If we'll just get it out, learn how to use it. I know it's not convenient, but if you're going to do a better job and you really want these soils back in good health, you don't have a choice. You can only abuse a system so long before it will fail you.
Like with Jerry's case, you know, if you're taking your corn off November 15th, I shut down my manure business day before Thanksgiving. I still got everything 100% washed up. So you still could find some days in there to take a sprayer out and put on some bio release over your corn stuff. And that would help. Like you said, it'll work all winter for them.
Well, it does, but you got to look at what's coming next year for you. People say, gee, I can't afford to, I don't have the time. Well, there's so many more benefits the following year from using the biology the previous fall. You're going to get a lot of fertilizer made by that biology that you wouldn't have otherwise. You're going to have warmer soils. You can plant earlier. You're going to have better germination. There's a lot of great things that come from the use of these microbes. So we start it in the fall, but there's a handful of incredibly great benefits that are going to roll through the next year, especially your planting and growing season.
And something Ken mentioned there with that residue is basically it's a disease haven. It's a perfect environment for that disease. And Goss's wilt has been absolutely annihilating us lately. So if we can break that residue down in the fall, we're less likely to have Goss's wilt in the future. Oh, okay. We just handed out a corn and soybean management options, and basically it's putting different products and different rates and things like that, kind of what we've done in the past on different plans and things like that. When to apply them, how to apply them, and then we'll come up with rates and things like that for you. Molybdenums, it's extremely important for nitrogen efficiency. Need to use about 6 ounces per acre for the entire year. You want to put that in, you know, you can put that in starter or put it in with your nitrogen. There's many different aspects of the different plans here. Seed treating, we talked quite a bit about seed treating. It's extremely important. We've seen very good results so far in the seed treating. More root hairs. The more root hairs you have, the more nutrition you're going to be able to, that plant will be able to take up. And the more water that plant will be able to take up, because we are going to go dry. It's usually just a matter of time. Usually, you know, late July, August, we get pretty dry. Seems like we got some rain came through now, but if you have more root hairs, you're going to have more ability for nutrient uptake and water uptake. Plus, those root hairs are very easy for the microbes to break down, process. So you can those microbes can break that down. You'll get that many more nutrients that way as well.
Dennis?
Yeah.
Just a note on this fall residue treatment. Down in Iowa, in 2010, now look at it.
Okay.
We treated a guy's field who was fairly skeptical, and we actually, we did a whole bunch of area on kind of a massive test. One guy has said, since then, that one field we treated, the 3 successive years, it has always been his best field. And he has not used it since. He used it one time, one fall, and then he didn't even use our program after that. We ended our relationship with the distributor. He has told the rep, every year that is still my best field. Using a conventional program, nothing of yours, but that biology changed that field enough over the winter that it still outproduces my other fields noticeably, and it was never my best field to start.
That's pretty interesting. You've built up your fungi, I'm sure, to break down the residue, and that fungi is still there. As long as the environment is still there for them, they can inhabit that area and keep going.
You don't have to buy your fungi every year, guys. It's not like minerals.
But you do have to set up the environment for them too.
Yes, you do.
So you're saying that the bio-release spray on over the top will act completely different than stuff you put the roll as a starter for the residue?
Well, it's setting up the soil for the previous year. Your bio-release is going to help your biology through the growing season. Okay? And the one thing is you're putting your bio-release in your starter to grow your plant. You're not spraying it on your residue berry.
Right.
Okay? So your bio-release is abandoned. So you'll have a different, Jim has seen this, you'll have a difference in your crop row versus what's in your between rows in the soil out there. It's way softer, way different. The biology is way higher, and it's going to take care of some of the residue. But next year, you're going to go back and plant in a place where you didn't have bio-release, and you still have crop residue, you're going to have disease. You're going to add a whole bunch more to it in the fall.
So the bio-release during the growing season is there to prevent the lockup and unlock and stimulate biology where you put it. In the fall, what you're trying to do is stimulate biology to break down your residue. They're functionally two different things. It's just like,
Especially fungi.
right, I could use cattle water to help break down the manure, but it's already done a function. I still want to put it in the tank when it goes to the field.
So the bio-release, even though it's putting in furrow, it will break down the residue a little bit, but it's not.
Well, it'll work right in the root zone, right there where that seed goes, but it's not going to spread out.
We do see that as we use biological programs, even though we're not putting a fall residue program down, we do see that we'll have more actinomycetes breaking that residue down from previous years. But many times that corn residue is in there from 2 or 3 years ago. That's very common.
Still there.
Yep.
And so, different functions happen. By
Or stop and do the cover crop and do this
beginning of
again?
the
What
growing
do you
season in
think?
the fall, most of your bio-release is
Keep
gone.
going on this?
Your microbes you
We got to
use,
take a break.
plants you're
Can we
using,
can't get this done.
it's chelating minerals, and we have stimulated more fungi, and it will get better over time. But if you're going to get rid of all of that trash in a short period of time, you really got to kick in the microbes and get it going.
Does it have to be worked in?
Yes, biology doesn't work on telephone poles, or they'd all be gone, guys. Anything sticking up in the air is not going to be effective. It's got to have dirt, earth contact. Then the biology can get rid of it. That's where they live. That's where they work.
You don't have to bury it a foot deep like my brother did for me last fall.
No, don't go for
2
it.
inches would do the
Just
trick.
get dirt on it.
I only got one cornfield out last year, 4 ground floors, and I had that out of one. I mean, I got one work to rock phosphate in. When I finished work, got the field work that night, the ground was froze.
Well, if you get it in, you still got 2 or 3 weeks in the spring when it's not before you plant. Microbes will come in and take off.
Just like they do in the manure pit lagoon, they work all winter long. Yeah, they slow down a little bit, but they're still working. Okay.
Well, I think we're going to move on. The bottom line is let us help you develop a program that will fit your operation. And if you're interested, call us.
Okay. What we're going to do, Dennis, is we're going to leave that other until
Okay.
a little later on.
Yeah, so that one's done.
Now, what Dennis did is he passed this around, and so this is what we would consider a complete program. I consider this a Cadillac program, all right? Now, are you going to do all of this on your farm? Not necessarily, but it tells you, it gives you a roadmap for fall, spring, in season, of some strategies, nitrogen management you need to think about. And then this is a worksheet here the second one where you can bring it down to a cost per bushel or per acre. So you know what the cost is going to be. So everybody is going to have a little different strategy. This is kind of an outline to give you an idea of kind of how it might look. Okay. What we're going to do, we got some examples that David and Dennis want to talk about, but I think we're going to stop here and take a break and then come back, and we're going to go into cover crops. And after we talk about cover crops, then we're going to talk about soil health issues, and we got some things we're going to do out underneath the tent. I believe for lunch, we're going to eat right in this room. We're going to have sub sandwiches. So we kind of had to shift everything because we were planning on going to the field. So we had to bring everything in here. So the guys that were going to be in the field are going to be here working with us. Let's see. I don't believe Matt's in here. Would TJ and Miles, would you introduce yourselves now? So people, these are going to be people that will be speaking afterwards. So Miles, you want to tell people who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Miles Ellison, and I am a soil scientist for the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And I'll be presenting a little bit about soil health today and how we can create a better quality soil.
Yeah, and Miles has been the initiator of the Freeborn County Soil Health and Water Quality team. And so we've made some progress. We've had one field day. We hope to have maybe another one yet this year and maybe a meeting this fall. But
farmers that we're working with trial plots,
yeah.
trial some different cover crop options.
Yeah.
I'm sure TJ will touch on that.
Yeah. TJ, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm TJ Curtis. I'm from Bloomsburg, Minnesota. I got started with cover crops here a few years ago, a couple legacy seeds out of Wisconsin, and just really developed this a lot farther into finding out that we've really been damaging the soils more than we realized, and we need to bring them back. And there's a lot of methods of doing that. Cover crops is a big part of it. So I've been working Miles on the soil health team and with a lot of the producers in the area. It's really catching on. At first, it was kind of a didn't know what to think, but now there's more and more talk. You can't pick up a farm publication on how to find cover crops. So. But it's finding people to kind of understand what it's doing and why. So hopefully we can come here today and just give a little education on cover crops.
Now, what we were going to look at today was a field that had been in a kind of a biological program, cover crop program, and then overseeding corn with a mix in urea, and then some plots that had 6 different mixes. That this is all that TJ put together. Hopefully, maybe this fall and first part of September we can actually have a field day and we'll everybody know if you want to come back. But so I mean, he's got hands-on practical experience in regard to this. So another person, Matt Levitt, is here from Elderly Seed House. He's not in here right now. So let's take a 10-15 minute stretch, and then we'll come back and we'll get into cover crops.